All right, thank y'all for joining us. Just a couple more minutes and we'll be getting started. All right, and for the record, we will be recording this webinar. So we're hoping that if you miss parts of it or you want to go back and see something, you'll be able to get that afterwards. We're going to be posting on our LinkedIn and then our YouTube as well. You can share that out for anybody who wasn't here today. All right, well, I think we're going to get started. It's 1 o'clock. We've got an hour material at least we got to get through here. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. My name is Michael Whalen. I'm the owner and founder of Byte-Werx. We are a managed service provider and Microsoft Silver partner, headquartered in the Houston area, but we have employees in Houston, Dallas, Bentonville, Arkansas, and out in Colorado. So we kind of have several states that we participate in and clients all over the US and our first international client. Along with us here is David Swenson. David is one of our kind of almost sister companies, partners. We've worked with David and his company, NetLogic. He's the director of business development at NetLogic out in the east side around the Boston area, stuff like that. David here was a previous Microsoft employee. He's currently on the Microsoft Diversity and Inclusion Board. Along with myself and Byte-Werx, NetLogic is an elite member of the 20, and he is hashtag Cortana Squad. So hopefully in the next hour, we're going to be going through kind of what our philosophy is, where we kind of are, how Microsoft 365 fits in with the nonprofit organization ecosystem and some of the grants and software available to us, and how that can help better and put your organization forward into the future and some of the present technology, especially in the post-COVID remote work anywhere kind of world we're in right now. So just a quick brief history of Byte-Werx. We were founded in 2012. In the past 9 years, like I said, we've created a managed service company that has spanned pretty much, I think we're up to about 7 or 8 states in the US now, but we are able to serve pretty much anywhere in the US. We are also very proud to use Microsoft 365. About 4 or 5 years ago, we've kind of selected that and started going down that path as one of our primary tools as we started seeing the breadth and the depth of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem and what it was that Microsoft was planning on doing in the future. We knew we wanted to start learning and jump on board now, rather than playing catch up with the rest of the industry later on down the road here. David here, I think, is right there with us. They may have actually been a little bit ahead of us on that, but we've both been very pleased with and excited by just the way Microsoft has been handling this, the value that they've continued to be adding onto the system that we have, and looking at the roadmap ahead, what I think we are still going to be coming in the next 12 to 18 months as well. So we kind of created something in our in-house. We call it Anywhere 365. It's kind of bundle of services that we use. It's a little it's a bundle of different Microsoft licensing, different systems, and in a way for us, and services that we are able to utilize to kind of get the most we can and specialized organizations in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, depending on their needs. A lot of times what we see when we're going into new organizations, even if they're already using Microsoft 365, is that they're barely scratching the surface of it. They know about emails, they know about Excel and Word and the Office environments, and maybe 1 or 2 other things, but they are usually awestruck by the depth of the catalog when we start showing them all of the apps that they have before we even start talking about how we can even build custom applications and custom workflows and automations before we even just touch that, just the out of the box stuff. Most people we found aren't using 50 to 70% of that. And we're going to touch on some of that today. But the main goals that we have with the Microsoft 365 and our Anywhere 365 program is to kind of work with organizations and businesses to make that ease of use, that understanding of the 365, since being an expert in all things Microsoft is often a couple full-time jobs for some organizations, especially things like their licensing. Part of what we do is we bring our expertise and our continual learning as we are going through and trying to learn about your organization, and then using that knowledge that we gain from about your organization, finding or building custom solutions that will fit perfectly for your particular problems or needs, and then in such a way that we can use that. One of the things we like about the Microsoft 365 Enterprise or the ecosystem is that you own your data. There's a lot of SaaS programs out there, and we ourselves use some of them. There's some good programs, but if you've ever had a SaaS program and for whatever reason you decided that your organization needed to leave that program, sometimes it can be difficult to get your data out or use it in such a way that is useful for you. So one of the things we like about the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, there is a lot of things that we can do or that it can do, and you still have much more control than if you're giving your kind of life away to some of these other organizations on here.
And Mike, can I add into that too?
Absolutely.
So one of the things, guys, hey, everybody, I'm Dave. It's great to be with you today. The really cool thing, coming from Microsoft and then joining the managed service provider space and working directly with Michael and folks like him across greater North America is how Microsoft is really one big piece of graph paper, right? Now, what do I mean by that? If we think about the competitors out there in the enterprise ecosystem today, we're thinking about Google, we're thinking about Amazon, we're thinking about all these other options that you have to go with now, right? Do you want G Suite or do you want Microsoft? And when Mike was talking about SaaS, that's a big thing. And what SaaS is software as a service, right? So with software as a service, that means instead of you going to the local Best Buy or to the Microsoft store or wherever you used to buy your technology, you're no longer buying boxed copies of software. You're just paying a very low monthly subscription, and you always get the latest up-to-date features. So back to what I said about graph paper, right? Think of Microsoft 365 as a blank piece of graph paper with the smallest little boxes on it you've ever seen. It's Mike and my job and our teams to make sure that all of those dots align perfectly and connect in the way that your organization needs them. And that's really the beauty and the power of using a Microsoft 365 environment. It can be made custom tailor-made for a user of one all the way up to an organization of 500,000, right? So there's huge opportunity here, and we've developed some amazing templates to help this make life a lot simpler for you. And I'm really excited for Mike to show you those things. But Mike, I'm sorry, I just want to turn it back over to you.
No problem. Thank you, David. Yeah, and just quick story time. I'm just going to give a semi-anonymous example, but we have a client out in the Houston area. They are a medical device company. They were using, like a lot of organizations do, multiple ways to talk among the different teams, amongst each other internally. You're talking about email, phone calls, personal cell phones, text messages, group messaging. They had about 8 or 9 different ways that critical information in the organization was moving around. And we came in and they were wanting to streamline this, and they didn't want people to have to use their personal data as little as possible, so we can make sure everything is flowing in the right direction, and that there's fewer spots that everybody had to look to find answers to things. And so one of the things that we did for them was we actually built out a Microsoft Teams, which is a lot like the communication hubs and spokes of the Microsoft ecosystem. I'm sure David will talk about that a little bit later. And between that and some automations, some basic forms that we've created for them they were using as ad hoc surveys in the past, they had told us that after the first year during 2020, we actually saved about 1,000 labor hours that they normally would have used to just do these mundane tasks. But because we're able to save a minute to 3 minutes here and there on these small little tasks or these workflow automations and these efficiency gains added up over the span of the year, that's, you know, $1,000. That's quite a lot of time. So we're very proud of that. But one of the things that Microsoft is doing a lot right now is they are working with nonprofit organizations. Now, there's a lot of nonprofits, these are specifically 501c3, but there are grants available that are up to $3,500 a year for Azure cloud services that can be used in any way that your organization sees fit to. You can get the first 10 Microsoft 365 Business Premium licenses donated to your organization. The business version of that, just so you know, costs about $20 a piece is the MSRP. So that's $200 a month of donations there. And then the Dynamics 365, you have access to the fundraising engagement CRM there. So if you don't have a CRM or you're looking for a solution to kind of keep track of your donors and being able to more easily reach out to them and track how y'all are handling your donors, your list, and your engagement with your members and stuff like that, that's also included with that. If you don't already have it, it is a simple process. This is something that Byte-Werx has walked multiple nonprofits through. We're more than happy to meet with you, get you on the calendar, talk to you about this, and walk you through if this is something you haven't already done in the near future, and we can work with that on there. But at this point, I'm going to hand the webinar off to David here to go over some of the nuts and bolts of it, and we'll see you on the side.
Awesome. Great stuff. So yeah, in getting all of these items at little to no cost to you guys, what is this all about? So we've talked a lot about technologies and new things coming out for the market, new things that are available to you. But realistically, what we're really trying to say is we've got a way for you, slim to no cost, to be able to get to your data in what you need faster in a secure way from just about everywhere. Mike, do you mind advancing it for me? So how can Microsoft help you enable remote work? Let's talk about that first. And that's really one of our biggest concerns now, because we're not fully remote anymore, but we know that hybrid is going to be here for the long haul, right? Everybody, now that they've got a taste of being at home, wants and now needs the flexibility because their life has been designed around a year of being out of the office, right? So how do we make sure that our data is secure, our devices are secure, they're functional, things are getting updated, and our support desk from Byte-Werx is able to reach us no matter where we are. And that's through this program. So this solution is not only going to give you the Microsoft Office apps you know of, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but it's also an end-to-end solution to help you manage all of your company's Windows, Mac devices, iOS, and Android devices too. So it doesn't matter which platform you're working on, you could just keep you could just keep managing and onboarding those devices no matter where you're working from. Go ahead for us, Mike. And how, of course, do we enable collaboration? Very much like we're doing right now on Teams. So let's go to the next slide and talk about how Teams and SharePoint is impactful to all different types of workers within an organization. So we like to think that there are three, or at a very global level. Now, most organizations are very nuanced, right? But if we break it down from a global perspective and look at a company or a nonprofit or any real type of organization, you have three types of individuals in there. Information workers, these are the people that are behind the scenes, processing your data, working on a desktop or a laptop, and using the full Microsoft Office applications, the Word, the Excel, the PowerPoint. Then you have your first line workers, right? These are people out in the field. Maybe they're working with customers. If you're in a retail environment, maybe they're your floor sales associates. If you're in a medical environment, maybe these are your nurses or your doctors that are communicating with patients every day. And then, of course, we have healthcare, schools, and government. So if you are in a healthcare organization, we work fully with HIPAA compliant organizations and the Canadian Health Act as well. So all of our solutions are completely built around HIPAA compliance, Department of Defense compliance, and any Department of Education compliance for handling student data. So this is a real multi-purpose, multi-flex solution that's going to fit just about any industry that we can throw at it. Let's keep going, Mike. Microsoft Teams. I'm sure you've all seen, heard, or watched a commercial by now about Teams. You've probably even used it over the last year. What is Teams? Teams is a Microsoft application that actually evolved from an app called Skype for Business, or Skype, right? So you might have heard of Skype before. That is a Microsoft product. And if you have a Microsoft account, meaning a Hotmail account, an MSN account, an Xbox account, right? These are all Microsoft products. You already have a Teams account. Now, if you have a Microsoft 365 account for business, like we're talking about today, that comes with even more robust features called Teams Pro. And Teams Pro is going to give you meeting and calling, chat and collaboration, and all of your line of business applications and workflows right in one place. So Teams is one application where you can get to all of the apps, services, data, and tools you need to get your day-to-day work done. Let's keep going. We need to make sure that interactive meetings are actionable. People can participate in them and they can get to them, right? So very big part of what we're doing now, and we talked about hybrid work. We need to be able to reach our customers and anyone that we serve, no matter where we are or where they are, right? So gone are the days of them just walking into the office and checking in. Teams allows you to not only have a secured workspace on any device you're working from or any place, but it's also going to give you the option to do things like holding meetings and interviews with your customers, having individual patient visits for healthcare organizations, doing therapy and counseling for community nonprofit groups, right? I actually sit on the board of a nonprofit up here in Boston, and we've done a lot of these things in Teams as a group. So all these different things are available right within inside of Teams, and you can have up to 250 people in a meeting like this. There's also the opportunity to do what's called a webinar or a live event that supports up to 20,000 attendees. So if you needed to have a webcast or a public speaking event and you want to broadcast that virtually, you can again have the cameras in the room and then broadcast it virtually and do it live at the same time. So we're extending your reach to the rest of your community. Let's keep going, Mike. Do one-on-one chats, right? You need to be able to chat, text message, work with people outside and inside your organization. So with the power of Teams, it's taking all of that chat and building it right into one central place. So you'll be able to communicate with people whether they have an account with your company or they're just a guest. You can also share and work on Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Google Docs, Dropbox, any type of files in one centralized place without needing to worry about authentication or sign on or anything like that. That will all be controlled and managed for you by Byte-Werx. Let's keep going, Mike. Automation is a huge piece, right? We need to automate where it makes sense. So a lot of the times I see organizations, well, Mike and I see organizations where they will have everything to do with their company stored in an Excel spreadsheet, or maybe an Access database if they had a developer work with them. Some are even using some older SQL style tables. And if you're one of these types of organizations, automation is a huge piece of Microsoft 365. So gone will be the days of you needing to manually input data into an Excel spreadsheet for resource tracking or project planning or anything like that. It's all built into Teams. And again, if we think back to the original analogy of that big piece of graph paper, that's why Mike and I are here. And we're going to guide you through this entire journey to make sure you're maximizing everything that's included in this subscription for you. Let's keep going, Mike. Virtual events. So let's go into our virtual event slides. This is going to be a whole topic on what I was talking about earlier. What types of events? How do you communicate and keep in touch with your individuals? So just like we're doing now, as I mentioned earlier, you have your live and on-demand events. These could be meetings that you schedule through Outlook or your email. These could be meetings that you schedule through Teams. You can also schedule these meetings on platforms like LinkedIn or Salesforce or Facebook or wherever you'd like to schedule these meetings. You also need a news and announcement section, right? If your employees or your team members are going to be spread out all over the place, we need one central place to be able to communicate updates, changes, and track the digest of that information, right? We want to make sure that information gets to our team members in a quick and timely fashion, and that it's in a consistent spot every single time. So you'll have a centralized place to post company news and even role-specific news for things like your sales department or your marketing department or your field team. Insert name here, it would work. The other piece that's really big is the leadership connection. And we actually use this heavily in my organizations. And this is a place for the leaders of an organization. Even if you're a company of 5 or you're a company, like I said earlier, of 500,000, you still want to have a place where the leaders and the executives of the company can share ideas, share information, and hold regular meetings. That would be included in here too. And it's for the leadership's eyes only, sort of like a personal vault just for that team that's shared amongst you. Let's keep going, Mike. Virtual events. So have you ever wanted to hold a webinar virtually? Or have you wanted to be able to broadcast to YouTube while you're holding your in-person event? Or for those that couldn't make it because of the date and they can't beat the traffic, would you like to be able to broadcast that online so that people can join in from home if you want to? All of that is part of this 365 subscription that you're entitled to as a 501c3, and we really look forward to spinning that up with you. So tons and tons of capability here to reach your end users. And the end users do not have to have any relationship with Microsoft whatsoever. They just have to have an email address. They don't even need to install any software to join these events too, which is really nice. And the events can be participated in from your phone, your tablet, your PC, or your Mac. It does not matter. Let's keep going, Mike. We talked about employee communications. How do you reach people? How do you get them the latest and greatest news? How do you let them know that a standard operating procedure has been updated? How do you get them to attest that they've done the training and they've kept up on their e-learnings? They know how to use the latest software. They know how to do the latest policies and procedures from within inside the organization. All of that is part of the employee communications bundle, and that is, again, part of this solution. So it's really about fostering communication and collaboration between different departments, between different roles, and both for inside and outside the company too. Let's keep going, Mike. What about the device management, right? We mentioned that all of these things are spread across your Windows, your Mac, your iPhones, your iPads, and your Android devices. So let's keep going and take a look here. You need to help your team stay productive, right? People have a wide range of devices spanning all different kinds of platforms now. We've got Windows, we've got Mac, insert, all different brands, right? We also, especially as a nonprofit, oftentimes can't afford to outfit all of our team members in the latest and greatest equipment. Sometimes we're using recycled equipment. Sometimes we have temporary workers that don't actually work for the company and they're just contracted. So we shouldn't be issuing them a company device, right? So how do we make sure our data stays secure on any device it's accessed from? Not only secure, but how do you make sure it's a consistent experience for every user, no matter where we have to meet them? And this is all part of that solution. Help your team stay productive by keeping the experience consistent on any device platform, on any version of the software. Nothing like that matters. They need to be able to pick up where they left off, right? I need to start a document on my computer, but then I have an appointment, so I got to run and I'm going to grab the bus or the train or get in my car. And I need to make sure that that document is following me on my phone. So it's that kind of behavior you can expect. Start something on one, pick it up on another right where you left off, and share with up to 300 people simultaneously so you can all edit the documents together in real time. And that's all about that collaboration. So these are just some of the key features of the device experience in the solution. So let's keep going and take a look what else there is here. Working from home is, of course, going to be with us going forward. We know this now. And this is all about empowering your people to do more than just work on their computers too. What about if they have kids that have to do their homework on their computers, or if they have family members that need to use that home PC to do their work too? This is an incentive where the license for nonprofits that's included at no cost also gives you the ability to install the full versions of Microsoft Office for Business on up to 5 PCs and 5 tablets. So that could be on 5 Windows devices, 5 Mac devices, and 5 Android and iOS devices. So lots of different ways to structure this, and you get all of these benefits to you, even on your own personal devices, just by having an account. Let's keep going. Real-time collaboration. We mentioned earlier that if you've ever used a Google Doc or a Microsoft Office Online file before, you're familiar with this concept where you can have hundreds of people in a document, Word, Excel, PowerPoint at any time, and it would be able to be edited by all of those individuals, no matter where they're at. And you could even see their cursors moving across the screen with their little profile picture and avatar set as well. So you can have a conversation and be working on a document just as if you were sitting next to each other while being thousands of miles apart. Let's keep going. What about locating content? This is another key point that we wanted to really hit home when we came up with this solution. The hardest part we've noticed for organizations through research and through patterns and just through experience is, okay, great, we've moved all this stuff to the cloud, right? But now how do I find it, right? Where do I get to it? How do I make the cloud work for me? Because when we do a migration to Microsoft 365, it's not just a simple cut, copy, paste. Okay, we're going to take your data from here and put it over here. No, we want to use intelligence features because it is in the cloud now, and it does have intelligence built in. So as you're seeing in this graphic right here, all of your content will be aggregated and organized for you by the system. Of course, we'll set up your own file structure too. You'll still have your traditional file structure, but it's going to become abundantly easier to surface and find content that matters to you, regardless of which device you choose to be working from. Let's keep going, Mike. Of course, it wouldn't be a complete mobile device solution without mobile phone access, right? So your Android, which you see pictured on the right with the little animation, and your iPhone, which you see pictured on the left, all share the exact same experiences. The applications are all the same, and they work the exact same on every platform. So if your team member wants to buy an Android device, go for it. If your team member wants an iPhone, sure, go for it. We should have a system that enables our team members to do the great work on platforms they already love and know to use. And that's what this platform is going to do. Your users should not have to change their behavior. The system should change on behalf of the user. And this is just a little example of how we've made that possible with Microsoft 365, is to extend all of the desktop functionality that you know and love right in the palm of your hand. So no matter where you are, you could be just as productive as if you were sitting in front of your keyboard. All right? Let's keep going, Mike. Of course, we need to talk about security, right? So let's go on to the next slides. And we need to think about security in a couple of ways. There's two. We need to think about company-owned devices, right? Devices that you have purchased on behalf of the user, and then devices that they choose to bring with them, right? Bring your own devices, whether it's their phone or their computer. And again, it brings us back to our three pillars of users inside our organizations, which are our information, our first line, and our regulated users like healthcare, law, and government. So let's go on to the next slide and take a look at how some of this is going to help us. So with this solution, no matter which platform you're on, we're going to be able to deploy and manage the correct applications to the correct users. So gone are the days of you telling your team members, oh, okay, now go to the store and get that app. Oh, okay, yep, sorry, you need to go and download that app now. Nope, all of that's going to be taken care of for you by Byte-Werx. So as soon as that user signs in, any app, tool, or service that they need is automatically going to be installed and set up for them. And that's really just the power of this. And again, they can be anywhere in the world to get that done on any network at any time. Very easy to do. If you do have an on-premise system, now what does that mean? That means you have a server room with a bunch of servers on a rack, and that's driving your network right now. This also integrates with that system. So we can do what's called a hybrid directory. And if you do have an on-premise directory right now, we can integrate all of this new stuff with that stuff and make it work seamlessly together. So you don't have to necessarily change everything you're doing now. It's just, think of it like a simple software update that you'd be getting to your environment. And let's keep going, Mike. So key capabilities. It's secure and it's intelligent, right? Native cloud-powered encryption. So encryption on Windows, Mac, iOS, Android. What does encryption do? Encryption means if somebody were to get a hold or physically walk away with your device or steal it, they would not be able to extract any data from it, right? Even if they had credentials or stuff like that, encryption is going to prevent those bad actors from getting in. It's streamlined and flexible, right? So no matter where you choose to work from, even if you were to spill coffee on your laptop, you'd be able to walk into your favorite computer retailer, pick out your machine, and then sign back in with your Microsoft account. Within about 45 minutes, your machine will set itself up again, just as if you need to pick up where you left off. That's the power of the modern Windows and the whole Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And of course, this maximizes the value for you as an organization. Gone are the days when you have to put in a ticket to IT for that. Users can do a lot more self-service. Users have the ability to manage their own devices and even choose their own devices if you want to allow them to. So a lot of really cool features that you're able to do with this. Another big piece is what's called risk-based control, right? What does that mean? Maybe you want someone to access their resources from a specific country or a specific IP address, or they should not be accessing work resources from home. All of those policies are configurable and customizable for the end user and that organization. Let's keep going, Mike. Another big point is task management, right? So let's take a look at our task management slides and see how all of that rolls up and rolls together. So just as before, you will have your tasks inside of Outlook, right? Now, here are just some fun statistics that came up from some research on the general workforce, right? 44% of people strongly agree they would like more tools to manage their work. 91% say they crave modern technology solutions, and 10%, this is the real kicker, 10% installed their own project management tool without their company or IT approval. So what's that mean for you? That means if someone doesn't have the tools they feel they need to do their job, they're going to go out and figure out their own way to do it. And that can create risk for the organization. If your data is getting moved to an unsanctioned application and it's not governed by your organization, that could pose a risk, right? So we're going to help you get to that. Let's keep going, Mike. And now I'm going to turn it back over to you to take it home. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you, David, for kind of walking us through some of the nuts and bolts on that. And yeah, thank you all for attending. We're a little bit quicker than we thought on here, but we wanted to give you our information on here. We wanted to provide you some actionable next steps on here as well. If anything that you've heard today, if you think that your organization would like to learn a little bit more and like to find out specifics in regards to like the specifics of your organization's needs, we welcome you to schedule some time with us. If you just go to Byte-Werx.com, you can schedule a technology strategy session. You'll see a button on the top right of the screen, and there's several buttons throughout. Just fill out that form, and we'll be in touch with you, and we'll get you scheduled on our calendar. Additionally, we have some further reading if you would like. We wrote a PDF, a little small book. It's about 7 technology shifts businesses and organizations need to make for 2021. These are just kind of our view of what we see the near-term future for technology is going to be, and also some threats and opportunities for you. You can go there on that website we have right there. It's just bit.ly.com/7shifts2021. I would like to see now if there's any questions that anybody has. You can go ahead and open up your chat bubble in the top right of or towards the top right of your screen. There should be a little chat bubble. If you have any questions, feel free to write them down in the chat, and we can see about answering them. But let me see. But going back to a couple of the points that David was making earlier, one of the things that through the collaboration that we're seeing with some of the organizations we've been working with, they're able to better bring in their outside volunteers, their outside help. I think one of the things we might have missed in the donation slide is, in addition, for an organization is given 1,000 kind of low-level frontline worker licenses for volunteers, so that they can have some basic access into the organization, especially if they're recurring volunteers or maybe board members or something like that on there. So these are several things that we'd love to help you out with. If you haven't begun your journey with the nonprofit program in Microsoft yet, we would love to talk to you. We can walk you through that step by step, handle nearly all of the aspects of that for you. And as David alluded to, one of the reasons that we have found success with this program is it becomes very just kind of done for you. We like to just take it over, put it together using best practices, and then we schedule over time. We kind of learn your organization. We learn some of the needs. We go look for different things that we can use. And yes, David.
Hey, Mike, we actually did get a question in chat, so I'll just read those off to you. This looks great. Do you have to do it all at once?
No, that is not something you have to do. Most of the time, was I was saying, go How do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. So typically it's going to be done in stages. Usually, let's say if you're starting at nothing in Microsoft right now, you're using an old email that you got for free from like your web developer or Google Suites, G Suite, something like that. The first steps are usually creating the users, pulling over your email, and getting the structure, depending on how deep or complicated your organization is. You may have multiple layers of groups or security on there, or you may just be a smaller organization and just have everybody in a single thing. So setting up that initial kind of groups, security, and your email is usually our first step. From there, we usually like to build out SharePoints in the Teams, which is going to become your a lot of times the primary communication and file serving hub versus internally and externally. And then from there, that's where what we do next often depends on your organization and the specifics of where you are, what your needs are, and that is usually discovered over a series of conversations. A lot of times we like to kind of show some of the past work we've done on our own organization internally or additional organizations we've worked with, because a lot of times people just don't know. It's like, okay, you're telling me all these things, but I don't, like, give me something concrete, show me an example. And so that's usually our next steps on that, was we kind of walk through some existing examples that we have. And then a lot of times what we see is, well, my favorite part is when I see that light bulb moment, when I'm walking somebody through some of the automations and you can just see it click, that they thought of something like, oh my gosh, I can get rid of this horrible task that I have to do 10 times a week. And it just sucks the time out of my day. And then, yeah, that's, if I see that, I always want to know what that is. And then that is usually where we'll start. And we just move on from there. We have organizations and businesses that we are serving now in all stages of this. We have everything from, we're just now starting to move their email over, and all the way to, hey, we've got all this great stuff set up and now we're ready to jump into the deep end, and we're building out custom Power Apps so that they have their own application built on the Microsoft system that their team members and their employees and stuff can just pull up on their phone or their computer anywhere. Yes, sir, David.
Looks like we get another one. Yeah. So how would it work, or how complicated would it be, or is it possible to set up a team for like a board, and some of the board is outside and some of the board is inside, and we needed to send and share meeting minutes, for example?
Yeah. So with Microsoft, once you have this set up and you can create your teams, there's this concept of external users. David's actually an external user for Byte-Werx's internal stuff. So what that means is you can grant external users specific access to certain teams or certain folders and files inside of your organization where they wouldn't have access to other things. So in the case that you are talking about, David, you could have a board of directors team meeting or team group, in which case you can invite external members, your board members too, and they don't need to have a license, one of these paid licenses or anything like that to access that, but they'll be very contained in what it is they have access to and are able to discuss and see.
Awesome. And then the last question I have here is, what about protections? We often have to send protected and encrypted emails to our to the folks that we serve.
Yes. So again, one of the things that we've seen is the increase in the need for security. I'm sure everybody has heard, to the point where they probably are tuning out now, all the cybersecurity events that have been happening. And a lot of times we have sensitive information. Maybe you have something like a donor list or something that you want to be able to share to somebody, but you don't necessarily need that information to get out there. There may be sensitive information on people who don't want their contact information out. Well, there are different ways to do that. Like just jumping back to the previous example, you could have a group or a team with external users, and they may be allowed to do that. And so they're able to see only these files or folders. But additionally, your individual users, depending on the level you have, you can make it so they can share individual files, but make it to specific emails. So, for example, I need to share this donor list to my lawyer because they're filling out some forms or something like that, as an example. So I am able to send him a link in the email, and when he opens it, it's going to send him a little code to that email to verify that he's the person that can open it. He'll put in that little code, and boom, he's got access to it. If he were to forward that email to somebody else and they try to open it, it's going to send the original person the code. So unless they have access to both to his email and the link and gets that code, you're able to do some basic designs like that where you can keep it secure. One of the other great things is the endpoint Defender, the Defender 365. Recently, Apple released an M1 chip. Not to get too technical, but basically it's built on a completely different architecture than the Intel chips. What that meant was a lot of programs had to be run in kind of like a virtual environment or in a kind of bubble environment, or couldn't run at all on there. And what happened initially was there was this scrambling because a lot of endpoint protection and antivirus software couldn't run on this ARM architecture, this new chip. Microsoft is also working and developing some new Surface laptops and tablets that are also going to use chips with that ARM architecture. So while several people and most endpoint and antivirus companies couldn't protect these ARM chips, Microsoft was ready day one on there, and is one of the only few that still are already doing the next level endpoint protection, even on the ARM architecture on that. And it looks like we had one more question on here. Yes, so it was
the chat. I'm on that chat.
I see that. David, you want to just jump in since it looked like you already looked up and was talking about the answer?
Yeah, definitely. And this one came from Crystal in the chat. Thanks so much, Crystal. All of this stuff is completely HIPAA compliant. And as I put in there, the first 10 licenses are completely free to 501c3s. Mike and I will just take you through an approval process, collect the appropriate paperwork from you. It's very standard stuff. And then for every user after the count of 10, it's only $5 per user per month. So extremely affordable and very easy to manage. And that is fully HIPAA compliant.
And to build on to that, Crystal, HIPAA compliance is a compliancy framework. So a lot of times it's not as much the licensing. I mean, there is a minimum level of licensing that would be like the business premium that you get free, or like the enterprise 3 or 5. But there are settings and compliancy frameworks that you have to turn on and tune correctly on the back end to make sure you're utilizing everything you need to be able to check all those boxes for HIPAA compliance, GDPR, ISO, all those any of those kind of compliancy frameworks that you may have. They're not usually set out of the box. That is some of the stuff that we can help you out with if there are compliancy frameworks that you're working under, making sure that they are accurately set up on the back end.
Yep. Another thing we should point out, Mike, that's relatively new for nonprofits too, is if you have users that just require email and Teams access with like OneDrive and SharePoint, let's say they're not going to be working on any Office documents or creating Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, you have up to 300 licenses for free for Microsoft Business Basic, and that's also included for nonprofits. It's not for your information workers like we had described in the slides, but for anyone that just needs that web access to Teams, get an email address, and have a place to store their files, that is free for up to 300 seats.
Yeah, that's an excellent point on there. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions. David, did you see anything else?
No, I am not seeing any more questions.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I do want to thank all of y'all for attending today. Thank you for your time. I know it is very valuable for you, and I know it is not always the easiest to drop everything during the day just to block out an hour of your time. And we do want to say we appreciate that you were able to do that with us today. We have been recording this presentation, and we're going to be putting this up. So if you'll check our social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, we'll be announcing that. And if you want to send this over to somebody else, or you just want to rewatch all or parts of it, that will be available to you shortly. And again, thank you all. Thank you, David, for joining us and helping us out with this. And is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, absolutely. I'm excited, guys, and I will see all of you in the cloud. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.